It's time to put down the fish fingers and custard, take off the bow tie, and put away the fez as an Unearthly Podcast says farewell to Matt Smith in Time of the Doctor by Stephen Moffat, starring Matt Smith, Jenna Coleman, and Orla Brady.
Alrighty.
Alright, and welcome to this special edition of Unearthly Podcast, being broadcast on 25 December 2013. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
I am...
Happy Christmas!
I am Randy Ronson McCulloch, acting as special host this week. With me is Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
And Bill Sylvia, as long as Man in Black Sylvia, as long as his connection holds up. And by the way, this is our 40th episode. You haven't missed one. We actually have been making a little mistake our last few episodes. Ever since Shockwave, we've been an episode off. As always, you can follow us on twitter.com/unearthlypod, facebook.com/unearthlypodcast, youtube.com/madmattinc1, and twitch.tv/madmat2185. And of course, this is reviewing Time of the Doctor, but of course, as usual, we'll go to the news. And we do have a little news.
A wee bit.
The first thing that we noticed that we forgot to review, I'd actually seen this a little bit ago, is the fact that Stephen Moffat came forth with what he had in mind for Christopher Eccleston to play in the 50th anniversary special.
That said, he did write it with the assumption that Eccleston would turn it down, so it was probably intended for her pretty much from day one.
Pretty much. He says he had both problems with Eccleston because, he was a new doctor coming in Rose, and he couldn't really see Paul McGann's doctor doing it. I can't.
Yeah, I honestly
could
think
see Paul McGann doing it if he really wanted to.
McGann could have done the whole thing. I mean, not that Hurt didn't do it great, but McGann would have been just as good.
I think really it's mostly an excuse because he wanted to rush to number 13.
Because he wanted to do Time of the Doctor.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There are also other rumors going around that Eccleston wanted creative control, but I don't know how much truth there is in that.
Eccleston is Tom Baker?
Can be at times.
It's possible. Like that's, by the way, completely unsubstantiated rumor.
True.
So I'm not sure,
And since it involves Christopher Eccleston, nothing about it will ever probably be substantiated because he seems to be pretty tight-lipped about anything
to do with the production behind the scenes or anything like that, and he seems to be very hot or cold whether he wants to be associated with Doctor Who at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no middle of him. He either really wants to do it or he dreads even going near it again.
Exactly. Also, the MarySue.com digitally combined all 13 actors currently playing the Doctor in the mainstream to create what they thought was the average Doctor face.
Are you ready for this, folks? Are you ready? Ta-da!
I don't think this includes the Shulka Doctor though.
No, the Shulka Doctor's not in the main line.
True.
He's kind of the alternate, the unregenerated, as they are called by the fan base. The doctors who aren't the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the face is pretty well average.
But what I find interesting about it, what I find most interesting is that there's a shadow from what was probably originally a lock of hair on several doctors, just floating in the middle of the face like a lightning bolt scar with no other hair connecting it to the main body of hair.
Yeah, it means that there was enough to put an echo on there. But yeah, it's pretty average face. I mean, if it was a complete composite sketch, you would think it's several people that you would see in a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is the problem with the more people you composite into a face, the more generic it'll become. I mean, if you look hard enough, I can see a little Colin Baker. I really can't see much Tom.
Yeah, not so much Tom. I see a little bit of Colin.
I see a little bit of Paul McGann.
Yeah, a little bit of Paul McGann. A touch of Tennant, although apparently the person that did this article couldn't see any. I can see just a touch. And I really don't see any Matt Smith either.
I see just a slight hint of Sylvester in there, too.
Yeah. And it's really hard to place where's what. So, kind of a generic-y look there.
Yeah, and I think the nose is a little bit of Third Doctor, too.
Quite possibly.
And this is also, rather than using anything genetics actually would, such as, which would be the most dominant nose or anything like that, it was literally each feature was an average between all 13, so it's pretty much
so it was
set up to be as generic as possible. Yeah.
Pretty much. We still need to do our doctor breeding program.
Yes, the multi-generational to get like the Quizarts Hatterack of doctors.
Yep.
Okay, next piece of news is RadioTimes.com had apparently a poll onto which is the best Matt Smith episode ever, and winning the poll is The Doctor's Wife, the first Neil Gaiman episode.
Woo!
Now,
I have a feeling a lot of people would agree with that.
I wholeheartedly agree with that personally. It is one of my favorite episodes, as I've mentioned before. I
know everyone on this podcast would agree with it much more than what the second choice would have been, off by 0.2%.
Which was
which is a popular episode that Randy and I particularly do not care for. I don't remember your opinion on it, Matt.
Yeah, what was surprising in the poll is that Day of the Doctor came in at number 3. And that would actually be my number 1 choice, is Day of the Doctor.
Actually, I noticed with Day of the Doctor is a lot of people who are very strong for Classic Who but are lukewarm on New Who in general felt that Day of the Doctor didn't spend enough time focusing on Classic Who, which honestly I think they were basically assuming that the special would be literally nothing but a look back, ignoring the fact of who its audience would be. Considering
the problem is at that point is
watching it.
If you spend all the time looking back on the stuff, you really don't have room for a plot. Number 4 was The 11th Hour, also a good episode. Right. Number 5 was A Good Man Goes to War.
Which had its good and bad parts.
Number 6 at 4.2% is The Pandorica Opens. Number 7 at 3% is The Angels Take Manhattan. Oh, please, people. Please. Well, still, that's only 3%.
Thank God.
Also at 3% is The Big Bang. So it's arguably number 7 or number 8. Number 9 is The Girl Who Waited. Number 10, A Christmas Carol. Number 11, Name of the Doctor. The Lodger, Asylum of the Daleks, The Impossible Astronaut, Rings of a Cotton, Nightmare in Silver, The Wedding of River Song, The Snowmen, The God Complex, and the very lowest episode on the list at 1.4% is Let's Kill Hitler.
Which is number 20, which means that I believe he's had just over 40 episodes at this point. So this isn't
there's still another
totally
like
inclusive
half the list.
Yeah,
these are the top 20.
The center of the TARDIS is not on this list.
Yay! Which means that people really didn't like it.
Yeah, I would love to have seen the full list.
And if Journey to the Center was at the bottom, we would just giggle to ourselves.
Yeah, the Crimson Horror isn't on this list either. But neither is Cold War.
Boo.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the full list.
Mm-hmm.
This is just about 90% of the total vote, so the remaining 20 or so episodes were split between 10%. Yeah, each of those must have had about a half or 1%
each. About
less than 1% each. I still would love to see the full list, and which episodes got no votes at all.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, my big question.
Yeah, did any of them get no votes whatsoever?
Are there anything on here we'd expect to see that we didn't? That's the question, I think.
See, The Lodger was on there. What was the sequel to The Lodger?
Closing Time.
That's not on the list.
I mean, actually, I've heard a few people say that that's one of the better episodes of that part of season 6.
And you know how many people has quoted the whole Stormageddon bit?
Mm.
I actually heard somebody named their baby that.
God, I hope not.
People name their children Bella, Jacob, and Edward. Welcome to the real world.
To be honest, with those choices, I'd rather be named Stormageddon.
I'd rather be named Neo out of all of them.
The first Angel episodes aren't on there either.
Oh, Flesh and Stone and the other one?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's when the Angels start getting OP.
What was it? The Doctor... The wardrobe one, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe takeoff from two Christmases ago isn't on the list either.
If I were voting on this, I would have been that dick who votes for the Sarah Jane episode that features the Doctor.
I don't think it was a write-in choice.
Yeah.
Which is sad, really.
Oh, I'm sorry. The article actually says he's had 44 episodes, probably not including Time of the Doctor, because this article came out 2 days ago. Yeah.
And I think that's all we can say about that. We named down the list. There's several things missing.
At least Nightmare and Silver still got in there, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. At least Vincent and the Doctor did not win.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, I'm just surprised Day of the Doctor scored so low myself. And apparently, we'll move on now to our last bit of news, and that's the voting that we had mentioned on Sunday is now over on the favorite Matt Smith moment. I believe you just posted a link to that in the channel a little earlier, Bill.
Yep.
Yep, and I got it up on the screen right now.
And it turned out to be the closing monologue of Day of the Doctor.
Yeah, I can see where that one would have been liked.
The article does. The article does mention.
Go ahead.
The article does mention that there was only a 2 to 3% gap between that and the next group. When we discussed this on Sunday, there was a 10% gap. So most of the people who voted early voted for Day of the Doctor, whereas most of the people who voted for other things voted in the past 3 days or so.
Okay, so the favorite moments in order are Day of the Doctor, the 11th Doctor closing speech, Vincent and the Doctor shows Vincent his legacy, Rings of a Cotton, the Doctor speech, I can see that one. That's one of the big three speeches. Pandorica opens the doctor's monologue. That's the second of the big three speeches.
Yep.
The 11th hour, Hello, I'm the Doctor, which is the third of the big three speeches. Then we had the fish fingers and custard scene from the 11th Doctor. The Doctor's wife saying goodbye to the TARDIS in her humanoid form. Angels take Manhattan. The Doctor reads Amy's message. And as much as I don't like the episode, I will admit that is a very emotionally charged scene.
Mm-hmm.
Good Man Goes to War. The Doctor discovers River's real identity. Nightmare in Silver. Matt as the Doctor and Mr. Clever.
You know,
and
it's actually... They changed that. They changed that because on Sunday when we were reading it, it literally just said "A good man goes to war." Period. Unless the poll was more specific than the blog was.
I think
the blog itself had only described the episode.
There was probably some bad code that disappeared the rest of that.
Probably.
Though that does kind of invalidate the poll. I don't know.
Either that or it was there in the poll and we just didn't look at it and they didn't explain it properly in the blog that was about it.
It's possible. And the final one is the Bells of St. John, the conversation with the Doctor looking up at Clara. And that is an interesting scene where he's looking up at her room.
It's an interesting scene, but it's not exactly a great standout moment.
Right.
It's the Doctor being quirky and weird.
And that's new how for the 11th Doctor?
I'm not saying it's new. I'm just saying it's kind of typical.
Yeah.
That is the low score. That is the 11th out of 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But still, Vincent, why people? I can understand that it's a really nice moment, but it still goes into a special episode of Blossom right after it.
That's the thing. I think people that have never seen special episodes of Blossom don't get as cheesed off about that episode as I do.
See, I've seen too many of those drug things when I was a kid, too, and just...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, see, it's just more the fact that it has a hard time distinguishing depression from schizophrenia, apparently.
And as a person who's experienced mild depression, I repeat, mild, up theirs.
Yeah, Vincent had other issues other than depression.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, he might have had bipolar disorder,
which is also would have added to it, yes, amongst other things.
You know, that is the list.
We'll have to review that episode one day.
Which one? Vincent and the Doctor?
Vincent and the Doctor. We'll have to just go through it and explain ourselves on it.
Pull my teeth. Why don't you just pull out my teeth, Bill?
Hey, Randy, how about this? I make a special episode that cuts off just before that thing at the end.
How about we make a PSA about the PSA episode?
There we go.
If you have a problem with PSA episodes, you can contact this hotline.
And tell them to burn this episode from all memory. And off store shelves.
Make PSA for the Society Against Public Service Announcements. Okay.
That's
that's the news. So let's get on to the episode. Oh, but actually, I want to do an aside first, if that's all right. Okay. It's Christmas, and it was actually a fairly beautiful Christmas today.
I wish the snow was stopped sooner, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but it was that light, fluffy snow. It was that snow you see in Doctor Who whenever it's snowing on Christmas.
I'll give you that,
It's the nice snow. It's not the, oh my god, snow and winds and killing us all.
Our snow in Connecticut actually stopped last night.
Yeah, ours started last night.
Yeah.
So this is coming your way. Just to let you know.
Well, my new boots also arrived yesterday, so I'm ready for it now.
I'm still in my sand shoes.
I wore my sand shoes last night to church.
Trust me, there is nothing worse than shoveling a car with a foot-thick deep drift in sand shoes.
Yeah, I imagine they're not very waterproof. That's why I never tried to wear them in the
They
snow.
have holes amidships in sand shoes to let the water and the sand out. It lets the snow in.
That's a cold in, too.
I don't mind that so much, because I've got special extra thick rubber sand shoes.
Mm.
But, so they actually keep my feet relatively warm, except when the snow comes in the holes in the side. So explain that one, David Tennant. How do you get over the cold shoes and sand shoes? You wore them on the Ood homeworld. How do you deal?
Well, he's the doctor. That's how he deals. You gotta remember, he's been on Arctic planets where he just barely put on a shawl.
His response would be, I'm the doctor. I'm 904 years old. I'm a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Castorberus.
I'm the oncoming storm, the bringer of darkness. And sometimes you just gotta suck it up. So, let's move on now to Time of the Doctor. First thing we should probably do is actually do a summary of the episode. Who wants to do this?
You probably don't want me to, because I'll get derailed pretty quickly and
start ranting.
Raging.
Yeah.
Okay, so the episode starts, and mind you, I just saw the episode like an hour ago, so I have not had time to actually come up with a summary. So I'm going to be winging this. It starts out with a signal emanating from a planet, which is basically surrounded by spaceships of pretty much everybody we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to look like the Pandorica all over again. And of course, in the middle, in the thick of it, is the Doctor, trying to figure out what's going on, what the signal, why he can't translate it. With him is a cyber head. Apparently he picked up at a marketplace. It doesn't have any organics, but it has a big frickin' database in it. He later starts calling the thing Handles. The Doctor is trying to identify the planet. He's trying to negotiate with the various races, and it always ends up badly for him. And in the meantime, he's also trying to field phone calls from Clara, who's having Christmas dinner with her family, whom she has told that she has a boyfriend. Not really having one, she wants the Doctor to fill the role. So eventually the Doctor does show up back there. And apparently goes to attend the Christmas dinner with the family while naked. Actually, come to think of it, technically speaking, Matt Smith spends the rest of the episode, from this point out, completely naked.
There is a point when Clara says it feels good to have clothes on again, doesn't it? ? But the Doctor doesn't answer, so I'm not sure if we're to take it that he put clothes on or not.
Or when.
Although he does go 300 years without the TARDIS, so he probably puts clothes on during that time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does.
Except he's wearing the exact same clothes.
I thought he got a different jacket.
I hope he didn't spend hundreds of years naked, but who knows.
So, Clara comes out, asks why he was naked, and he mentions he's about to go to church. He winds up attending the family thing while naked, forgetting to tune his screwdriver so that they can see the hologram of clothes he's projected around himself. This is, of course, allowing him to interact with the audience at this point, too, so that we don't have to see Matt Smith naked.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully. However, Clara has not put the turkey in at the right time, and mentions that, the only way that she'd be able to finish it on time is if she had a time machine. Cue the TARDIS. So they decide to put that thing right next to the temporal energies of the TARDIS, which will either cook the turkey or regress it back to it being a live chicken. The Doctor's not sure which. While this is going on, the cyber head finally identifies the planet he's been working on, and it says it's Gallifrey. The Doctor's like, oh no, it's not. I know what Gallifrey looks like, that's not Gallifrey. The robot insists it's Gallifrey. So the Doctor goes and takes a closer look. Except he can't get through because the church has put a big force field around the planet. So the Doctor goes to the church, where he proceeds to flirt with the High Priestess, and they start talking on an altar that's a bed. Or is it a bed that looks like an altar? We don't know.
At this point, Clara is now naked with holograph clothes.
Of course, because you can't go to the church with clothes on. It's considered offensive, apparently. And she apparently spends some time also naked, with holographic clothes. And while she's waiting for the Doctor and the High Priestess to finish their talk, she sees a member of the Silence, who's telling her to confess. And of course, the second it's out of her sight, it's out of her mind. The Doctor and the Priestess finish their debate, after which the Doctor is teleported down to the planet with Clara, where he finds the town of Christmas. And the church, which apparently admits a truth field. The church has a crack in the wall. I don't think we've seen the crack since the 5th series, correct?
As far as I'm aware.
Correct.
And
unless it was in the Series 6 finale, which everything was in that finale, but if so, I don't specifically remember it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Clara says that the Doctor deduces that behind the crack is Gallifrey. The signal being translated is a question. Doctor Who? It's the question, and it is now revealed that the planet is Trenzalore, the planet on which the Doctor dies. Realizing this, the Doctor sends Clara back to put a device in the TARDIS, which promptly makes the TARDIS dematerialize and rematerialize back on Earth. Basically trying to leave Clara behind. The TARDIS takes off again, but Clara grabs onto the TARDIS and winds up dematerializing with it. On the planet, 300 years of Cold War, essentially, has gone on, with the various races trying to infiltrate to kill the Doctor, and the Doctor stopping them each time. 300 years go by, and the Doctor visibly ages. By the time Clara gets back, he has to use a cane to walk. His hair is graying, and he has lines. Unfortunately, at this point, since he has the TARDIS back, the Priestess invites him back to try to negotiate on the Church, as she has been leading the forces, basically trying to stop the Doctor from answering the question and plunging the universe into the Time War Take 2. However, when you get to the planet, when she gets to the church, the Doctor and Clara discovers that the Daleks had basically killed everyone in the church and replaced them with Dalek. Much like the Asylum of the Daleks, it's with the eye stalk coming out of the head, etc. Mm-hmm. The Doctor manages to goad the High Priestess into recovering herself and taking out the Daleks that were in there ready to kill the Doctor. She quickly beams the Doctor and Clara back to the TARDIS, which goes back to the planet. At which point the Doctor tells Clara the turkey's done, and basically takes off, basically drops Clara off take 2, only this time she can't grab onto the TARDIS because, well, she's holding the turkey. So the Doctor continues to fight an active war against the Daleks on this planet, keeping them from killing him or taking control of the crack or whatever else the Daleks want to do. And the Doctor ages some more. Clara is, pretty much pulling a Rose at this point, where she's having a freaking breakdown because the Doctor has sent her away. She hears the TARDIS again and opens the door, and there's the High Priestess, who is taking her back to see the Doctor one more time. Because the Doctor has gotten old. Very old. Very Hartnell of old. And
I was actually thinking of Doug Bradley, looking at him.
He looks ancient. And the Daleks are calling him to face off, and Clara wants him to regenerate, and the Doctor mentions he can't because this is his final incarnation, and he lists them all off. And yes, both the War Doctor and Tennant's regeneration into Tennant were both mentioned, making him the 13th and final Doctor. He also mentions that if the Time Lords were here, they could have done something, but they can't. The Daleks call the Doctor to a final confrontation, and Clara pleads with the crack to help him because he's the Doctor. At first it seems like nothing happens, then the crack closes. The Daleks and the Doctor have an epic face-off kind of speech going on, where the Doctor is basically resigned to his fate, and then a giant crack appears in the sky, and out of the crack comes regeneration energy, which pours into the Doctor, and the Doctor, of course, immediately gets the upper hand in the conversation, ending with him explosively regeneration energy, taking out Daleks left and right. Clara, not sure what's going on, walks into the TARDIS, and there she finds clothes strewn across the ground, a bowl of fish fingers and custard on the console. Half-eaten. And there, walking up, is Matt Smith. Young Matt Smith. He explains that the regeneration has just reset itself and is going to start up again soon. Clara, of course, doesn't want the Doctor to change. But he goes through a long speech, then reels back, and boom! In an instant, he's the new Doctor. He's Capaldi.
After a hallucination.
Yes, I did forget the hallucination, which I'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
He sees Amy Pond, and then, boom, he regenerates Capaldi, who looks around wildly for a moment, and then casually asks Clara if she knows how to steer the TARDIS, which is in flight at this point.
And shaking.
End of the episode.
I think he said it was going to crash too, which would make this the third regeneration in a row, not counting the Tennant to Tennant one, to involve a crash.
Yeah, but it did happen a few times in the original too. I'm pretty sure the TARDIS was not supposed to be at an angle buried into the ground in Castrovalva. Albeit that was mostly Edric's fault.
Well, there's that, and there's also Time and the Ronnie. That was technically a crash, I believe, too. At the beginning of that episode.
that was it being diverted. And by the way, it is official now that the cause of the regeneration from 6 into 7 is bumping his head on the console.
God.
It was in the Strax report.
Weakest death of the
you
Doctor
can consider
ever.
you can take Strax with a grain of salt. I mean, I'd still what caused the bump and how hard the bump was. I mean, if someone shot a cannon at the TARDIS and he smacked his head against it hard enough to shatter his skull, that is a bump on the head.
I guess.
And that's, I mean, I still don't know what kind of weaponry the Ronnie was using, but she caused the bump on the head in some way. We know that much.
Yeah.
I remember lots of weird sound effects, and it sounded like a laser cannon being fired, so yeah, I guess.
But that's a side thing. So, Time of the Doctor. Where do we start?
It sure is a good thing that Clara erased all the Daleks' memories of the Doctor. I mean, this episode would have been totally different if she hadn't done that.
That actually comes up as a plot point.
It does?
Yep.
How so?
After the Daleks come into the episode, after they've taken over the church, the Daleks call the Doctor by name. The Doctor jumps. It's like, you shouldn't know that information. How do you know that information? And they state that they absorbed the information from the High Priestess.
Mm-hmm.
I must have missed that part.
Oh,
then.
you missed that part?
I must have.
Because I thought that's what you were complaining about.
No, my complaint was just the fact that the Daleks immediately seemed to know who the Doctor was and and how much of their enemy he was.
Wow, and you watched it twice?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Nope, that part was explained.
Yeah, it was explained, yes. I thought you were complaining about the explanation.
Who he was. They didn't know who he was when he walked onto the Dalek spaceship at the beginning, but the fact that he was carrying a broken Dalek eye stalk pretty much had the Daleks assume he was hostile.
Mm-hmm.
These are Daleks, they're paranoid.
Apparently he just transmats onto random ships with Dalek eye stalks to make himself look authoritative.
Yeah, since when has the TARDIS had a transmat? That was my question.
Right.
But then again...
I guess it's now that the Cybermen are Borg, the Cybermen head is able to beam him aboard ships, because Cybermen were able to...
Either that or he got bored one night and installed one. That seems to be an ongoing Matt Smith thing.
The Cybermen were able to beam at will in this episode as well, so...
Just about.
I'm just going to say that the Borg were upgraded.
Which is, again, very possible. It would be nice if it was explained, though. And I will also add that, for my part, I could give or take about half of this episode, but the end bit with the 11th Doctor had me bubbling like a baby.
Yeah, the music stings were particularly good in there. They broke into the Wake Up song from Rings of Akaton. I thought that was kind of cool. And then for a moment, we got one last bit of the Madman with a Box sting. And that song, by the way, has been growing on me recently. I've been listening to it quite a bit.
Yeah, that last bit before the 11th disappeared on us. Oh my word.
Yeah, that was a nice emotional bit. It was fitting of an End Doctor. And I will now actually, since we're talking about that, the vision of Amy actually does make some degree of sense if you look
that's
back,
the part that pushed it for me.
If you look back at previous Doctors, it is usually on the moment of death. They frequently have flashbacks to see their companions.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Fifth Doctor's death in Case of Androzani.
Right.
Where you actually see the Doctor's bad guys egging him on to die, while his companions plead with him not to. And that had to be a hallucination. Because Adric was in there, and Adric was frickin' dead.
Yeah. The thing about this one that was weird to me was, like, just the way he and, I guess, Dream Amy, for lack of a better term, interacted was as though, like, she was his lost love that he could never be with, or whatever. And I'm not sure if that's canonifying that as an idea or what.
That part of the concept of Matt Smith was that Amy was the first face he saw, and he kind of imprinted on her like a baby chick. I've never liked that, but it is part of the character that Stephen Moffat wrote in there.
I do, but, like, this seems to be even a step past that. So, like, I definitely understand that as an idea, but this seems to be a bit more like it was, like it would be like a scene you would expect between him and River, more than him and Amy, at least.
Yeah,
so at least that last few seconds of it, I mean.
When the adult Amy... I was watching it, by the way, with a group. And when the adult Amy showed up, before we saw her face and we just saw the nails there, we're like, oh my god, it's River. And I expected River to be there. River should have been there. I actually just said that River Song should have been in this.
If there was any
episode just a brief moment, maybe.
This is now one of the 7 signs of the apocalypse.
If there was any episode that deserved River, it was this one, because we're dealing with the group that caused her to be what she was.
They've kind of done with River as far as this, and but it would have been nice to have her for the goodbye scene. Although I do like the mention to her as they're going through and mentioning the stuff that's going on. And they mentioned they sent an assassin after to kill you before your time. I married her.
I think it was totally married her.
Yeah, totally married. That was I thought that was a good line.
But before we get too far into our own stuff, since he's not here, Eli did manage to send us a text with his own opinions.
And
since he wasn't able to make it.
He's very not fond of it.
In a nutshell, he enjoyed the method of storytelling, the feel of somebody passing down the story of the Doctor's last stand. Unfortunately, he found that the writing was pretty true to how the character has held himself. Overly silly. And he mentions the fact that a making of a fool of himself nearly ruined it for him, spinning the cane like an elementary school student while trying to address the situation. Overall, he decided it's not a win for him. It kept every issue that he's had with the 11th, or with Smith, we'll say, till the end. He found the Amelia Pond scene out of place, and for him it took the wind out of the regeneration. And his misogyny bit was that Tasha was hot as hellfire. And
I bet this it has nothing specifically to do with that, although this would be a conversation we'd have with him if he were here. Shouldn't she have been naked?
How do you know she wasn't and not using a holographic filter? And also, she's the priestess. She gets to set the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like, I just found it really weird that only the Doctor and Clara were, at least as anyone could tell, in any form of naked. It's like it kind of defeated the point of the naked thing.
They're the only ones that had to talk about it because they're from the outside, though, too.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like everyone else that's probably there is probably used to it.
Like, if they came in and there was a group of, like, visibly nude people, obviously, like, not showing particular things, but there's thousands of ways to hide that. Like, it would have made a lot more sense to me, rather than them being the only ones.
I really found the whole naked thing to be a detraction.
Oh, I'm sorry. The silence were
extreme detraction, but I did not hold it against
the aliens were naked, because they always are.
I just didn't like the fact that they had to keep bringing it back up. It's just like,
it got really weird, and this
I shoved it out of my mind as soon as possible, but they kept bringing it back up, like in the middle, like the last half of the episode again. They brought it back up.
The interesting thing is that Clara was obviously kind of disturbed by it, but her body language in never way indicated that she felt the way she was describing feeling. Like, she never acted the way you'd expect a girl who felt like she was naked to be. She didn't cover herself really in any way. Like, there were a few scenes where you could tell she was uncomfortable, but not that she felt the way she did. Or described the feeling, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But there was really no point to it.
Yeah, that's the main problem with it, is that there's really no real good point to it. It's just being stupid and silly.
Yeah.
In an otherwise fairly serious episode, and it really does detract from it. But again,
yes, I would have preferred this episode to have had a more somber note.
Yeah,
it did not need to be silly. I mean, you look at
it also didn't need an extra sidekick character that was partially comic relief, partially a reason for the TARDIS to be able to answer the Doctor when he asked it questions instead of talking to himself, and partially them trying to shoe in a dramatic moment with a character that we don't care about because they're not a character and we've only known them for 30 minutes.
You mean Handles?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Everything about Handles not everything. Like, there were a few moments that made sense, but the TARDIS could just as easily have filled its purpose without needing a voice box.
You see, that particular role should not have been done by a Cyberman. Really, if the Doctor has been going out and doing stuff by himself, I would have found it more amusing if the Doctor had built himself another canine.
Yes, that would have been much more apt.
If you look at the role that's being done by the head...
When you mentioned building an android, was that a Chameleon reference?
That was what was asked, and as far as I could tell, yes. As far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Or even if he had built Chameleon Mark II.
Yeah. If it had been something he had put together. But, yeah, I would have loved to have an excuse for John Leeson to do a voice in this. It would have been great.
And hold on, let me grab a name off of IMDb so I can say what I want to say. It's related to this.
But yeah, there was so many better ways you could have gone with the Cyberman head that wouldn't have been a Cyberman head.
Mm-hmm.
That's, again, another minor problem, but you know what? I can just
I
kind
could
of
deal with
sideline,
it.
but it could have been so much more.
I understand why they needed the companion, which is not, what Bill said, is the fact that he spends enough time in this away from his companion that he needs someone else to interact with.
But K9 would have been much better.
K9 would have made more sense and would have been a nice continuity nod.
Mm-hmm.
And considering what episode this is, this would have been a good excuse for Saran Jones to return as the speaking version of the TARDIS for an episode, even if it was all in the Doctor's head.
Yes.
Closing out the era by bringing back a popular character, essentially.
It would have been nice to have that in the flashback, to have a few more people.
Yeah,
I would have liked to have seen Rory there, too.
Mm-hmm.
Because Rory was a companion.
Right.
So it would have been nice to see Amy and Rory and River. And yes, even the TARDIS would have been nice to make a showing in that. But yeah, the character of Handles was necessary, but it wasn't necessary for it to be a cyberhead. The Doctor,
I really think the vast majority of Handles' stuff could have been cut out and left more room to answer some of the questions that have been set up over the.
It's not just that; it's the fact that the Doctor needs somebody to interact with for chunks of this. Otherwise, he's just talking to himself.
And to the hopelessly backward people that he's surrounded by.
Intelligent dialogue.
Yeah, he needs intelligent dialogue, otherwise he'd probably go crazy.
Speaking of intelligent, to me, Handles had the same feeling as Strax does in most of his episodes, where he's there for someone for the Doctor to talk at without really having intelligent dialogue.
I don't know. It seems smart enough. It just doesn't.
But I think it would have been more emotional if it had been a K9.
Yeah.
Because there's already some attachment by the people to a K9.
And I'm sure Peter Capaldi could have done something with having a K9 run around for a few episodes.
Except for the fact that they killed it in the emotional moment.
Mm-hmm.
True, yeah. There would have been... if they didn't kill it, I mean. But yeah, there's that too.
With Handles, as one of the people I was watching it with referred to it as the Doctor's Wilson. I'm taking it that you get the reference?
I think I do, but do go ahead just in case.
Castaway?
Yep.
Oh, not familiar with it.
It's basically Tom Hanks plays, I believe, what was a postal worker that gets stranded on a desert island.
Mm-hmm.
Or UPS or something like that. FedEx, something. Yeah, thank you, FedEx. And anyway, he basically has a bunch of packages there, and at some point he gets desperate enough to start opening the packages, and one of the things he finds, I think, is a basketball. Volleyball, which is made by the Wilson Sport Company, and he names it Wilson and paints a face on it. And he basically begins talking to it as a companion, and that's kind of the job of Handles in this.
Yep.
Is the Doctor is essentially stranded on the planet for 300 years. So he needs somebody to, talk to that's not one of the locals. Somebody to actually work as the companion level, I guess. And it's obvious that the people there, as he's growing older, generations are going by, and it's like he mentions to one person, "Are you such and such?" It's like, "No, I'm not." And it's like, "Okay, such and such."
Yeah.
Obviously,
that
losing his track.
And that was at the very end when he was about to die of old age anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I'm really glad they did it that way, where they actually showed him aging. I think I mentioned that on a podcast or two ago, and you guys said they'd never do it.
I do like it, but at the same time, this is the same doctor that went through 200 years in one episode, and once he shaved, looked exactly the same as he had before. So it's trying to put those side by side to each other, it feels really weird.
Yeah.
Well, it's like eventually he starts aging and dying.
Mm-hmm.
At the same, I can buy it. I can deal with it.
Although I've got to say the makeup in this was not too bad. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I thought it was convincing enough.
One thing old man makeup.
Yeah. One thing the BBC seems to be able to do really well is age makeup. Because they did really good with Tenet, and they're doing really good again with Matt Smith on this one.
I don't see the one with Tennant I didn't really like, but this one I think was better than that.
I liked both of the old age makeups that they did on Tenet. Mm.
They made him jowlier, which, I don't know if that was a decision that they made or what, but I didn't mind the old age makeup on Tenet. I think you're alone on that one, Bill.
Yeah.
What I do hate is that in all the replays of those episodes, they actually cut the "I can't decide" scene from it.
Ugh.
That's what made that episode for me.
Yes, I still have that song around because of that episode.
Yeah. Every time I've seen it replayed on BBC America, they cut that scene, and I'm like, no! Don't cut that scene.
What scene is that? I'm trying to...
I can't decide. The song that the Master's dancing around to at the beginning of the last episode.
Oh, the one where he yells and it starts, yelling, music playing about drums.
No, that's the episode before.
That's the episode before that. At the very end. This is the beginning of the next episode.
Yes.
Okay, that might have been just something I didn't notice when I was watching it. Then,
or you've only seen the cut version.
Or should I say that liminally?
Because I think the Netflix version is the cut version too.
Oh, okay.
Meg Netflix, God. You think one place that they would be able to have the uncut version would be Netflix?
I will actually check that sometime later.
Netflix should be whatever version's on the DVD.
Yeah, then it shouldn't be cut. Shouldn't be.
I don't know. I'll actually have to look, because it could be that it was cut afterwards because of some kind of licensing with the makers of the song.
Oh yeah, they might not have been able to afford to keep it on the DVD or something.
Right.
Which is kind of rubbish.
But it's that episode, that scene is on YouTube. And it takes place on the hover ship, which name escapes me at the moment.
It's the SHIELD equivalent thing that they have.
Yeah, it's the unit helicarrier. But it's like, and now, all hail your Lord and Master, playing track 3. And it breaks into a song by the Scissor Sisters called I Can't Decide. And the Master comes out dancing to the song, snogs his wife, grabs a cup of tea, drinks it, spits it out, stares at Martha's mother, who was dressed up as a maid and serving him tea. Then he runs up the stairs and rings a bell. David Tennant in the age makeup comes out, and he apparently has a little bowl there labeled dog, and he's basically being treated like a dog. And then the Master grabs him, throws him in the wheelchair, and runs him around the room a bit before going to the window where they have a discussion about the Toglophane. And at that point, the song cuts out. But it is a moment of sheer Master over-the-top insanity.
Mm-hmm.
And watching that the first time, I actually bought that song off of iTunes, so I could listen to it ad nauseum. And what got us on this conversation?
think we were talking about music for some reason on the episode.
No.
We were talking about
the old age makeup.
Yeah, the old age makeup. And yeah, I actually liked the old age makeup from that, at least until the CGI kicked in and we got Gollum Doctor.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where else we've seen old age makeup.
Family of Blood.
No, not Family of Blood. Although that they did do that, and that was decent in there too.
Mm-hmm.
But also in the same season, the Lazarus Effect.
Oh yeah.
Lazarus Effect, I think, was done fairly well.
Yeah, because Lazarus himself, who is Mark Gatiss, I believe, was actually, old age makeup for the beginning of it. And I actually hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I think that was convincing.
So yeah, they do a fairly good job with the old age makeup, and they did a good job here.
Yeah, I cannot fault BBC on old age makeup. They seem to at least do prosthetics right.
Then again, they have been aging the Doctor since 1963, so I guess they're kind of good at it.
Actually, I think a lot of their department is to keep the Doctor from aging.
True.
They weren't that successful with Tom Baker, but he was the Doctor for 7 effing years.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like I don't think the 10th Doctor looked any older in Day of the Doctor than he did in the Christmas Invasion.
No, Tennant has one of these faces that apparently doesn't age until he's a certain age, and he hasn't hit that age yet.
Like Sylvester McCoy.
Sylvester McCoy is showing some age.
Yeah.
Starting to, yes.
If you look at him in the 96 movie compared to his last showing, he had obviously lost a lot of hair.
And he's showing a few extra lines, but that's about it at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so what did we like about this episode?
The speeches were really good in this episode.
All right, Bill, what did you like?
The age makeup, Peter Capaldi.
Oh yeah, our moment with Peter.
There wasn't enough of it, so I'm not able to really gauge whether I'm going to like him.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of it, but some of the comedy was all right. Some of it was a little too much. Like visually, I think they did a good job visually.
Oh yeah,
I don't think there's really anything in the in the production quality, the direction, any of that I can really fault.
Mm-hmm. They did some really good spaceship stuff.
Any complaints I would have are to do pretty much with the writing.
They did some really good spaceship stuff,
is
interior and
throwing
exterior.
at Stephen Moffat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, we get another version of Irene Adler in this episode, who apparently the Doctor has been having an affair with, possibly, or so we seem to be led to believe. I don't even know. I don't even want to know. God damn. Why the
What
bed?
is with the Doctor and constantly snogging about every other woman except for his companions lately?
Trying to keep young.
Trying a little hard.
He seemed perfectly interested in snogging Clara in the beginning when she said that he was now her boyfriend.
Yeah. You wonder if he's, actually been turning into a dirty old man.
Pretty much. I mean, the whole time I watched him with what's her name, the leader of everything. It's like I was like, is there anyone he's not sleeping with at this point?
Like
I swear to God, if he freaking changes into Seppo Pie. That's another story.
I still don't understand why the bed in the, unless that actually was her bedroom and they just called it a chapel. I don't even know.
They did say go to her room.
Yeah, that was kind of she was a little over the top because I couldn't really tell if she was just flirting or if what the hell was going on there.
Yeah, and then there was a whole thing where she's like kiss me when I tell you to kiss me. He's like you better ask nicely, and she's like I forget the exact word, but it's essentially hell no. So I'm like, is she the Doctor's dominatrix? What the fuck?
I don't know. I really, honestly, I was not fond of that character.
Not particularly, no. We had such high hopes for her. Of course, they came crashing down. It's a Moffat story.
Well, I saw her costume beforehand, and I'm just like, no. No, guys, no, not really. Not really liking it. And I don't know, the character...
We were thinking she was interesting when we thought that she might be a Time Lord, but no, that proved to be a wrong... Okay. And it just kept going downhill from there.
Yeah, so what I liked about the episode is I really liked the ending. The whole, after he's done everything, regeneration bit.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the fact that he is tying up some of the continuity questions that he's started over the last few. He's added a couple more, but he's tied up some too.
Still not sure why the Silence took over the Earth and had to be driven off.
That was apparently a renegade faction, because that's also mentioned in the conversation with the High Priestess.
The whole training river thing was mentioned, but it still doesn't explain why a group dedicated to stopping the Doctor took over the Earth in the shadows and everything. I have a feeling I don't even I get that
I have a feeling that the Silence has been, it's another one where Moffat has fucked with their continuity enough that you really can't tell what their true origins were anymore.
I think at some point in the process of Series 6, after he had completed the first script, he decided, hey, let's take these popular aliens and make them part of the enemy faction.
Uh-huh.
Without really fleshing that through in a sensible way. I mean, he explained their origins in this one, the whole genetically engineered priest thing, which kind of makes sense, but it still doesn't explain why...
There's a whole army of them that just splintered off on their own for no
apparent reason. Why they have
Sith
Lord Lightning and why they were taking over the world and whatever.
Well, Sith Lord Lightning is Holy Smite. Think about that.
They're clerics.
Yeah, they're clerics. D&D, that's Holy Smite, man.
I can deal with that.
You know what that just reminded me of? No Headless Monks. This would have been a good episode for Headless Monks.
Okay.
They are in a church. Apparently that was a different faction, too.
Apparently
all the Headless Monks defected and took some of the Silence with them. Anyway. So what didn't you like? Matt, you go first.
Oh. Badly written female characters, usual Moffat trait, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Pointless nudity for the win.
Yeah.
And constantly bringing it up even though it doesn't need to be brought up.
If they brought it up for fan service, I could forgive it. If both the Doctor and Clara had some time of both showing their respective cleavages, and that was pretty much it. But it was more like uncomfortable nudity references than fan service.
Just do that first scene where the Doctor's nude in the TARDIS, and that could have been just it.
Yeah.
But they kept bringing it back. That's not funny.
And then every time I saw the Doctor touch Clara after the fact, I'm like, bad touch.
Yeah, that whole scene where they're she's holding on to him because he's holding on to her because he's cold. She's cold, and then they get knocked around and roll around on the ground and stuff. I'm sitting here going, yeah, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, really.
Remember, Clara, if it's ticklish, it's bad touch.
Clara, please show us on the doll where the Doctor touched you.
Just here's a marker to show us where he didn't touch you.
Yeah. Like I need to take a shower before I go to sleep tonight. Like I'm never. This forever. That's going to be the defining moment of this episode for me. No matter how much we watch in the future, that will be what defines this episode for me.
Can't unforget. Can't unforget.
Yeah, that's gotta be like the biggest problem with this episode, the fact that they keep bringing up this very unfunny joke about nudity and being naked.
Well, you know, bringing up very unfunny jokes is a Stephen Moffat trademark. I mean, after all, he's been bringing up the Strax boy thing now for like an entire season.
Yeah.
And it's not funny anymore.
Yeah, I will admit that's not funny anymore. It was funny for the first episode when he was brought back, but since then it's been,
Yeah. It's like I mentioned. It's like I mentioned on Sunday. We have two different forms of Strax. We have Strax the War Commander and Strax the Comic Relief, and Strax the Comic Relief is getting really, really old.
He either needs to have new jokes or he needs to stop.
At least he didn't like Gaddis bring in a sequel to Thomas Thomas.
Oh, thank you, Lord, for that.
Although, speaking of which, the town named Christmas. How did you guys feel about that?
I was waiting for Jack Skellington.
Like I guess that kind of is linked to the whole on the day that no one can can lie or fail to speak. Instead of a day, it's a city a town named after a day. But
yeah, I didn't find much fault with it. Like, yeah, the whole truth field thing. Yeah, that's probably part of why they named it in the first place.
And, you know, it did seem like they always seem to have a festive community, and they had, like, the universe's shortest day. And so it was always Christmas night.
The Doctor seemed to be in the verge of becoming Santa Claus. Like, I almost wish he grew a beard.
Would have been interesting. Actually, that would have been fun.
Yeah, that would have been fun if he grew a beard and stuff.
I had just came to watch this after watching the Santa Claus and the Santa Claus 2. Wouldn't have thanks.
That would have been surreal.
It would have been kind of surreal if he had started turning into Father Christmas there.
It's like Clara comes back at the end, and instead of being shriveled up and with a cane, he's like grown a beard, and he's like, I've put on some weight.
the locals, they keep making such good cookies. And fish fingers and cream.
I can't keep the cold out anymore, so I'm wearing this red jacket to keep myself warm.
The heat in the hologram is giving out, so I've taken to wearing this.
You have to understand, Clara. They've kept me alive for 1,000 years on a diet of cookies and milk.
And fish fingers with cream.
And I haven't had the TARDIS, so I go around in this sleigh now. Because sleighs are cool.
And it's pulled by reindeer, because reindeer are also really cool.
I wear red now, because red is cool.
Red with white trim.
And I have these big black boots. They're better than sand shoes, anyway.
The only thing I'm missing is a fez, but I have this red hat here anyways.
It would have severely messed with my brain. I would have had to go... Well, I would have had to go head wall myself a few times, and I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast because I'd be concussed. You'd have Aaron on briefly going, Randy can't come to the podcast right now because one eye is dilated and the other one isn't.
Good things also. Their ingenious attempts to try and sneak into the town.
To the wooden Cybermen?
The wooden Cyberman.
What was up with the deal?
Right, the cloaking field?
Right before the wooden Cybermen, they seemed to imply that the young boy was a Dalek in disguise, but that never really went anywhere. Did that go over my head, or...
The young boy? No, he just bumped into the Cyberman.
Like, they showed a Dalek, and then they showed the young boy, which to me was implying that the young boy was the Dalek.
I don't recall a Dalek.
But
no, I didn't see that.
I don't recall.
Like they showed a Dalek right before that scene, and it had no other context other than if the boy was the Dalek, but if so, it never went anywhere.
No, it was supposed to be that they were getting sneakier. But
one of their many attempts to sneak in, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, I do like the design of the wooden Cybermen, but I have to wonder, a flamethrower made of wood?
Well, it also had light up bits. But yeah, a flamethrower nozzle made out of wood that doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
They had to have had some other material in there to make that not instantly catch on fire.
Yeah. Although I do like how the Doctor... Like, I kind of saw that coming from a mile away, but I still kind of like that scene where he took care of the wooden Cybermen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Like, I think a member of the Cult of Skaro would have heard his wording and known exactly what he was pulling, but the average Cyberman wouldn't.
I like the fact that basically they just retconned out the name of the Doctor.
Did they? Like...
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because he didn't die there.
Because he was supposed to die, and
Bill, he did not die on Trenzalore.
Yes.
I know, but...
He doesn't have to die on Trenzalore, because the Time Lords gave him extra regenerations, or at least one. We don't know which. Which is basically the Time Lords giving a gigantic middle finger to the universe, because if it's anybody that hates Daleks worse than the Doctor, it's the Time Lords.
So they're just like, you know what? He's facing down to Daleks, and if we give him a whole new set of regenerations, he could blow them all up right now.
We actually don't know how much they gave him.
If this retcons out name of the Doctor, he said it was a new set.
Yeah, he did say it was a new set while he was in the TARDIS.
Yeah. Okay, I missed that. I am going to have to download and watch this again. I've only seen it the one time off of BBC America.
Does that mean that Clara is no longer a Mary Sue? Like, is she going to forget all of the extra memories she had from swimming through the Doctor's time stream?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And does that mean that evil
Shulka
Doctor, Great Intelligence, is going to come back? Because he never got to do that either?
I don't know. I honestly don't know the ramifications of this.
Yeah, we have not set what the ramifications are yet, and that probably won't come into full effect, at least for a couple episodes, if they even bring it up at all.
Yeah, because we're going to have the mandatory Capaldi getting his legs episode.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be before we see any real plot.
Do you think he's going to steal an outfit from a hospital?
No, we've done that twice now.
3 times.
3
times? When was the third time?
The third time would have been Matt Smith.
Yeah, I get Matt Smith. I get Paul McGann.
And then John Pertwee.
Oh, that's right, Pertwee. I keep forgetting that Pertwee did steal most of his first outfit, yeah.
Yeah, for most of his original outfit was stolen from a cottage hospital.
With a very eccentric doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And their staff.
Shoes.
Shoes!
Shoes! Only really wanting it because he apparently kept the TARDIS key in his shoes.
Mm-hmm. And tried to run away and almost got snagged by the enemy in the process.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of keeping the TARDIS key places, did he refer to where the key was as a quim? Because that has a rather specific meaning as far as I've been able to tell, and it is not something to do with a wig.
No, he didn't say that, but I knew what he had... I had heard what he had said, and I knew what it was, what it was called. I knew exactly what he meant when he said it.
Yeah, I don't recall what he said, but yeah, apparently it's not what you thought it was, Bill. Bill, this episode is making your brain go there.
It's not my fault. There's a whole bunch of things that actually are there. There's a whole bunch of footage
going that way, but yes.
There's naughty grandma hitting on naked doctor. So my brain has reasons to go to strange places. Speaking of which, is every doctor going to get hit on by an old lady now? Like that happened with Tennant in his last two-parter. That happened
Maybe,
with
but
Smith in his last episode.
It'll be less creepy with Capaldi.
Yeah.
Just a bit. Just a teeny bit less creepy with Capaldi, because yeah, he will be an older gentleman.
Yeah.
Anything else we wanted to cover on this? I think we were just kind of going through things and trying to figure out what we wanted to bring up.
I was kind of going through the good, the bad, the ugly.
The turkey got cooked.
Yeah, the turkey got cooked.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised the turkey didn't get reverted back to a chick or something.
No, because it had to be there for the vehicle to get Clara out of the TARDIS the second time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I do have something I want to mention that I thought was a moment of brilliance in this.
Mm-hmm.
How he translated the message.
Oh, yes.
He pulled out the effing seal of Rassilon.
Mm-hmm.
Which was either the same prop or a precise recreation of the same prop used in Five Doctors.
Yep. I got that reference too, and so it's like, oh, yes! Five Doctors reference, yes! Ah!
And he references it by stating it too. Nicked this off the
master on the
in the Death Zone.
In the Death Zone, yes.
I'm just like, sweet.
Oh. Yes, that was a nice little epic toss in.
Yeah. In a year that we've had a lot of references to previous episodes, so that's.
It's one of the better anniversaries, so of course they got to toss in a reference for that somewhere.
Yeah, they referenced that. They referenced some of the stuff that happened. You had to Day of the Doctor had to happen for this episode to occur.
Mm-hmm.
Because the War Doctor's brought up.
Yep, and the War Doctor's brought up towards the end too.
And the knowledge that Gallifrey is out there. One of the things that I don't like is the fact that instead of the Doctor going to find Gallifrey, apparently Gallifrey found him.
Yeah.
I'm actually not that against that, but here's also the thing that I believe me and Bill mentioned, is that, we mentioned this outside of the podcast, we don't know where Gallifrey is anymore, because I believe it was mentioned the idea that if the Doctor says name into the crack, that Gallifrey would come back. Well, apparently they just needed the word, the Doctor, the phrase, the Doctor, for a name.
Not exactly. But they're looking for the Doctor's true name as an indicator, yes, I'm in the right space and time.
Oh.
And what they're going to do is tear the crack open and bring Gallifrey through it.
So in other words, the crack has moved somewhere else.
Correct.
Yeah.
So okay, that's what me and Bill were kind of trying to figure out. Is well, where's Gallifrey? Is it back? Is it still in the other dimension?
They sealed the crack, opened up another giant one. The thing is that there's weak spots throughout the universe now.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout time and space, because the Doctor has kind of pieced it together like he basically pieced the universe back together with the temporal equivalent of crazy glue. And occasionally the cracks will leak through in the places where the seal is a little weak. And the Time Lords are basically finding one of those and pushing on it.
Which is why they were able to help the Doctor, and by keeping him alive, they keep their ability to be saved someday alive as well.
Correct.
I might add. So it was very apt of them to do this. So okay, yeah. So we're still looking for another chance at the crack in order to try and bring them back. didn't happen this time, and we're not sure we'll even be capable of doing it next time either, because it depends upon how things are where they find it.
I've got to wonder if they were broadcasting that transmission through the crack through all of space and time. Does that mean that those fleets were gathered there? Like, as soon as they created the fleets, they sent one off to Trenzalore to see what that transmission was about? Like, when did all those fleets gather there if the message has been...
Well, they might have received the message, but it's broadcasting through time and space, but it's still originating at one point in time and space. So if they weren't time sensitive, they would have had to have waited for the correct time to get there. Wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
It kind of conflicts with that whole oldest question in the universe thing that they were saying, but I can still kind of buy it.
Well, if it had been broadcasting through time and space, then yes, it was the oldest question in the universe.
Right.
It just happened that the question being asked through time and space happened to pop up at one place at one particular time.
Right. It's the oldest question because it's been there since the beginning, but it originates from this one port.
So, is there anything else we wanted to bring up?
We did the good, we did the bad.
We did some ugly.
Is the whole thing about what's her name being able to fly the TARDIS considered under that whole yet another generic, terribly written Moffat woman?
As far as I'm aware.
Pretty much. I've kind of gotten used to that, and I'm going to not let that detract from the episode, because,
Although I would still declare that that particular moment is another Moffat fail.
It's a general Moffat fail, though. It's kind of something that is I don't think we'll get rid of as long as Moffat's writing female characters.
Pretty much.
He'll always have one.
Can he just stop doing that forever then? Or just write one like he can have Irene Adler and River Song and no other females.
Yeah, remember, ladies and gentlemen, you can write the BBC at you can find the address online, or you can email them at bbc.co.uk and request them to replace Stephen Moffat with somebody else. We would like to recommend Nicholas Briggs.
Nicholas Briggs, or someone else that actually has shown talent for the show.
Or they could see if they could get Neil Gaiman in. I would love to see.
They would have to pay out the backside for Neil Gaiman, but you know what? I would prefer him over most people right now. Because he's written two of the best episodes that the 11th Doctor has ever seen.
Neil Gaiman or Nick Briggs, please.
Either one. Either one would be wonderful. And probably a step in the right direction.
So I guess
remember, folks, only you can prevent Moffat.
I think we are at the end of the cast at this point. Yes, it's time for the ratings. So, Matt, what is your rating?
I have to, as much as I really like it, and there are some, like I said, the ending just made me ball up like a baby. I had to wipe my face at least twice. But at the end, there's also a lot of flaws in this thing too, so it kind of degenerates it back to, I guess, 3.5.
Okay.
Just slightly above average, because there's some really good things in there, and it's really good when it's really good, but it's also really bad when it's really bad.
I already know you're going to disagree with this because you said Eli's rating was harsh, but to me this is, whereas Matt, I guess, sees this as a good episode with some flaws, I see this as a bad episode with some redeeming qualities. I'm coming down as a 2 out of 5, the same as Eli had given it.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up that Eli's rating is 2 out of 5 on this. And I'm more on Matt's part. Overall, I liked this episode. And despite its flaws, I liked this episode. I came out of this episode feeling good. I have not lost my, oh my god, I've lost all hope again.
Yeah, we're not back to that state, at least yet.
Yeah, this may change.
I feel kind of the way I did after Name of the Doctor, except dirtier.
That's because you keep letting that bad part stick to you.
The whole nudity thing is just sitting with you wrong, isn't it? At
least the way it was handled.
I agree that wasn't necessary. I agree that the priestess wasn't kind of necessary.
Yeah, she was.
I did not have any issues with handles.
Yeah, you guys like handles a lot more than I did too.
We just figured that handles could have been something better.
I think it could have been more emotionally involved if it had been a canine, but I had no problems with handles by itself.
Whereas I would see completely removing him and having nothing in his place as still being an improvement. You don't.
I do not. No.
No. Completely removing it, no.
I think at that point the nudity had put a bad taste in your mouth, and handles was just adding to it in your book, because at that point nothing could have redeemed the episode. But no, there were some parts in this I really liked. I liked most of Christmas Town with the Doctor aging. I liked the ending very much. I liked, as much as I wish that, it could have been the Doctor looking for Gallifrey instead of Gallifrey finding the Doctor. It's still out there, and the search could still happen. So I'm still optimally looking forward to this. I'm actually going to give this one 4.
Slightly nicer than I am to it.
Yeah, it is not the 5 out of 5 that Day of the Doctor got. I had mentioned this to my friend Bob, that if you watch Day of the Doctor and this one will feel like a bit of a letdown. But I still think there's enough good things that happen in this episode. And we get to see a little bit of the fresh new Capaldi Doctor. And before we go, we didn't get much of him, but I do want your first thoughts of Capaldi Doctor.
He doesn't know how to fly the TARDIS. Oh my.
That's not unusual. Tennant couldn't fly the TARDIS either. Smith couldn't fly the TARDIS in the beginning either. Post-regeneration amnesia.
Yeah.
Eccleston thought he could, but screwed up every time.
Just about.
Or close to it. By the way, our average out of the 4 scores is 2.875.
Okay.
Just below average for at least 2 out of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the score just below average. So the main sticking part, I think, is probably the nudity thing, and if you let it get to you, then this episode is going to be terrible for you.
I'm going to stress that because I'm not necessarily a prude, especially with Doctor Who. Just the way it was handled really made me uncomfortable.
And I can't argue against that. I understand the position you're coming from, and I'm by no means a prude myself, but...
Actually, can I aside on this moment, Bill, and ask you the question? If they had actually been naked, just, with a lot of cinematic tricks to keep everything at a rating, and they had actually continued on like that for X amount in the episode, would that have bothered you?
I think that as a result, the way the actor, the acting and directing would have changed to reflect that, and those changes probably would have improved it for me. That in itself wouldn't have done it, but the changes that resulted from it, because of the director and the actors looking at it in a different way, would have improved it.
Okay. I was just curious. So
we're not being prudish. It's just that they did this really the wrong way.
So the fact that they were naked without being naked, is really what kind of throws it into the area of wrong for you.
Kind of.
Because it made the characters act like they weren't naked.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time referring to the fact that they were.
Right.
Okay. So I believe that wraps everything. On that bombshell, I think we've wrapped up this particular special edition podcast. Yep. Thank you for joining us.
And I believe we are probably not meeting up on Sunday.
No, we're not.
This actually, I believe, concludes our 2013 series.
Mm.
We will be back the first Sunday in January for the start of our 24th. That will be January 5th.
Yep.
I believe 2014 to start our new series, and I believe we are going to be reviewing the 10th planet from the classic era. I believe that's correct.
I think usually we do a special, a special episode in between, which we
okay. So you have a special in mind, Bill?
Well, what I mentioned this once or twice, but what I think would be a good idea to do is if we each do our favorite moment per Doctor before we go back into head-on reviews.
Our favorite moment per Doctor?
Yeah.
So basically,
best of next time.
A best of, but not a best of episode. A best of moment, huh?
Right.
Wow. And that's actually in 2 weeks, essentially, or a week and a half.
And that's a lot of material to cover.
Yeah, that is a lot of material to cover. I mean, it's
we'll see where we are at when we're about halfway there.
But yeah, everybody else, I think I can nail it for the later Doctors. But the first 7 are going to take some work.
Actually, the first couple I can probably think of something pretty quickly, actually. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I'll figure it out eventually, but I have a week and a half to work on it, so not a big deal. But so we will see you then. It will be back at the usual time on Sunday. That is approximately 2:30 p.m. Eastern.
Central.
And that'll be the start.
7:30 if we have anybody on in Britain listening.
Greenwich Meridian time, yes.
Yep.
So tune in then. Have a happy New Year, everybody. And we'll see you in the new year for the new series.
Happy
and
New
Merry
Year and
Christmas
good night
to all of you at home.
Yes, enjoy the rest of your holiday seasons. I hope you got everything you wanted. And I hope your Christmas dinner was good. Mine was fairly good, if I did say so myself as the chef.
It was alright. Mine was alright.
We had ham. I glazed it. It was wonderful, tasty.
And I like to try your ham because our ham kind of meh.
And remember, your screwdriver does not have a turkey setting. So please...
They need to make one, dang it. I need to Sonic myself up a turkey.